With this, I am shifting to other subject, which is again of cardinal importance for all advocates, including junior advocates, because the effort is to obtain temporary injunction in new matters. And many lawyers appear, junior lawyers rather, appear in such new matters, and they try their luck best to obtain some interim order. Now again at that stage, if after filing plaint, the court realizes that proper party is not before it, or even if court does not realize it and court passes some interim order, executability or binding nature of that order would be a serious issue. You are aware of Order 39, Rule 4, the order obtained against a municipal council is binding on all its officers, but there is no position or provision rather to the converse. Now, my friends, in this, when it is a request for grant of temporary injunction, the plaintiff or party seeking temporary injunction of urgent nature has to show prima facie case. Now, this prima facie case turns again on the nature of personality of the respondent defendant. If it is artificial person, the considerations which I have briefly discussed earlier, they assume importance. Hello, I am getting the echo. Is it all right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
No, I am getting echo. You are receiving my sound properly?
Yes, sir. Very clear and sound.
Okay, thank you. So, when you go to court and state that your client is in possession of a municipal property for more than 10 years and now his lease agreement or tenancy is not being renewed and he fears forcible dispossession, you have to immediately understand the fact that you have not looked into section 92 of Maharashtra Municipal Councils and Industrial Townships Act 1965. Now, section 92 does not permit municipal council to lease out its property indefinitely. If it has to lease out the property for more than 3 years, it has to obtain previous permission from state government. If it has to lease out property even for lesser duration, it has to follow proper procedure. It is public property. The municipal council is under obligation to return to public the best possible returns. So they have to follow a competitive process and thereafter select a tenant. Now these cases, as you all know, arise when the party in power in municipal council undergoes change after election. If the other party is elected to power, the earlier tenants who are in good books of earlier political party file such suits. Many times such persons enter the possession because of their relationship or influence with president or chairman of some committee, or because of good use of good offices of chief officer. So their entry into possession itself is not legal and binding. Now if this is the position, you have to explain what is the legal right in his favor. So only because he is in possession can it be said that he has got a prima facie case. Definitely it cannot be said, and he has to establish his legal right. His legal right can be established only when he shows that he has been put in possession by municipal council in adherence to scheme contained in section 92 of that act. There are similar provisions in other enactments. So this is one thing which is apparent again, and this error occurs because the legal provisions have not been looked into or read. Now, I will very briefly deal with the other section, other part of the prayers for interim relief, that is in relation to unauthorized structures or encroachments. Now again, if your client is in possession of a municipal property or property of corporation or state government, he has to show how he has entered the possession of that property. Entering the possession of a property belonging to a private person like me is different. It can be explained. There can be various agreement situations between two private persons. But when one is natural person and the other side is an artificial person, law controls the life of that artificial person. Law controls the dealing and disposal of property by that artificial person. Now, if this is the position and all these legal provisions are in the interest of that artificial person to see that those who are controlling that artificial person do not abuse or misuse their position, the property is not misappropriated, not lost to public, the burden is heavy upon plaintiff and he has to discharge the same. He has to point out how legally he has been placed in possession. Now, if a person is placed in possession of a municipal property or corporation property, it will be through some document, not only resolution, but some registered document, and that too in accordance with provisions executed and again, the temporary injunction cannot be asked for. Now, if it is a case of unauthorized structure, unauthorized construction, unauthorized structure, unauthorized construction may be because it is encroachment and maybe because it is against the provisions of DCR, that is Development Control Rules or building bylaws. Now, your plaint therefore has to show plot number, name of layout, or the date on which layout was sanctioned, area of plot, boundaries. If these details are missing and only allegation is, this is my construction, I have received a notice which asks me to demolish it within 3 days, 7 days, 15 days, because there is no sanction and please protect me. The pleadings itself show that the person who has received notice or then his advocate who has drafted plaint has not fully understood the case. The moment you give plot number, the court understands that yes, this plot appears to be a legal plot. So it is not an unauthorized development in some agricultural field which has been carried out without converting that field into non-agricultural purposes. This is not a plot laid privately by that agricultural landowner which has no sanction from revenue or no sanction from municipal council or municipal corporation. So you get a plot number, name of layout, which at least prima facie show the legal status of the property. So the property is in existence in the eyes of law. So property legally exists. If this is the position, then you can thereafter point out, and you have to point out what is the area of plot. Now, all over Maharashtra, if it is a plot being used for residential purposes, mostly FSI is 1. A plot is of 3000 square feet, therefore you can construct 3000 square feet. Now, again, you have to leave marginal spaces open. Marginal spaces in front, in rear, on either sides vary. Somewhere it is 5 feet, in some cases it is 12 feet, in some cases it is 10 feet. But those are the legal provisions which you can point out to. You can, along with the plaint, then give these details, point out that on a plot I'm measuring 50 feet into 60 feet, your construction is placed in this mode and manner, that you have left marginal spaces open on all sides, that your construction on ground floor is only this much, on first floor it is this much, so total construction does not exceed 3000 square feet. So if this is there, then you prima facie establish that FSI has not been exceeded. Now these are the facts which are within your knowledge, which are open to naked eye. If you have a look at any property, you immediately realize whether this property is legally constructed or there is unauthorized illegal construction on it. If the construction is in marginal space, front open space, we all know that it cannot be compounded. Now, if this is the position and plaintiff is conspicuously silent about all these aspects, what happens is you may not get temporary injunction at all. So your client will be unhappy and you will lose the client. But if before filing the suit, if you collect all these details, what further details can be collected? To inspire confidence, you can also ask your client to get a certificate from architect, a certificate from engineer who has supervised the structure. That architect or engineer can certify that structure has been constructed strictly in accordance with relevant DCR or building bylaws, and it does not offend any provision of law. So a court which receives such certificate cannot, according to me, refuse temporary injunction at all. Now, many times court ends up by giving order of status quo. Now, status quo again creates problem because other side comes up and then it files an application pointing out that order of injunction has been violated by plaintiff. He has continued with this structure and completed it. So, it is always better to file a digital photograph along with your suit so that court knows that on the date on which the temporary injunction was granted or suit was filed, what was the position of the structure. If there is an order under Order 39 Rule 3, while filing proper affidavit, you can again file digital photograph pointing out the extent of structure. If you are defendant, you can raise objection. You can file another photograph rather challenging the earlier photograph of the plaintiff. So that way you can assist the court. Court can then look into the matter. But then in either case, you are putting up correct position, correct facts before the court. When you are not putting up these facts, an adverse inference needs to be drawn against your client for hiding something. The drawing of adverse inference therefore results in denial of temporary injunction or then refusal thereof. And this ultimately again affects not only client but the young lawyer who is trying hard to obtain some relief for his client. My friends, after this, I will deal with one more aspect, that is about the documents, mode and manner in which the documents need to be proved. Now, we all know, means perhaps all of you are aware, that merely exhibiting document does not mean that its contents are proved. Similarly, if contents are proved, it does not mean that truth of those contents also stands proved. When we are in law college, we look into provisions of Evidence Act. We all know how a document is to be proved. We all know how attestation, what is the attestation, what document, that is will, gift, require attesting witnesses. But then when it comes to practical, that is questions to be put to witness to show that will has been attested or to show that the contents of that particular document are true, those questions are missing. Nowadays, we are not required to ask those questions. The affidavit in support of examination in chief is filed, and mostly you will see that these facts which support the truth of contents of document or then attestation of a bill are missing in it. Now, my friends, if I purchase Taj Mahal from one of you and then file a suit saying that though I have purchased this property, I have not been placed in possession. You appear and accept everything. So a sale deed, its execution, contents are all proved, and because everything is proved, if the court decrees the suit and I am declared owner and entitled to possession of Taj Mahal, you can understand what will happen. So proving contents of document, that is that Taj Mahal has been sold, is one thing, but proving truth of those contents, that Taj Mahal could have been sold by you to me or I could have purchased Taj Mahal from you, are two distinct things, and this therefore must be kept in mind when we are arguing a case based upon document. Similarly, similarly, when we look into the question of attestation of a will or attestation of a gift, many times you will find that questions which will show to court that other attesting witness was present when executor signed the will or signed the gift deed, or then both attesting witnesses have seen the executor testator signing that document, or then executor testator has acknowledged to both the attesting witnesses that he has signed, his signing or he has signed that will are not there in the affidavit of examination in chief. These defects come to notice at this stage when first appeals are argued or then second appeals are argued. If these defects, which are very rudimentary, which go to root of matter and therefore fatal, are noticed after 12 years, 15 years, you can understand what will happen to the interest of your client and what will happen to his faith in you. My friends, perhaps I have taken more than 40 minutes. I was supposed to address you for about 40 minutes. These are some of the errors which I have always noticed and which I have tried to correct myself whenever I got opportunity by addressing the advocates to look into it. I have also given adjournments for that. But when this platform was made available, I thought that all those to whom I could not see, to whom I could not address, who could not appear before me, they should also know this position. They should also be benefited, and they should also, because in a profession we may be required to take instant decisions. We may be required to file a plain written statement immediately. But after filing it, the system gives you opportunity to study. So utilize that opportunity, study. It is always better to study before filing. But if you do not get that opportunity, utilize time after filing, correct yourself, at least correct yourself when you are appearing before the court. Because when you appear before court without reading legal provision, it is not only negligence, but it is also rashness. Now, with this, my friends, I will conclude. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you, sir. If anybody have queries, please write in chat box. I will read.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
So one query is there. Dr. Sheetal Baba is asking, when there is a conflict in between natural person and artificial person, always benefit is given to artificial person. Isn't that an unconstitutional?
Benefit is not given to artificial person. Benefit of doubt is being given to artificial person. Artificial person cannot defend himself. He depends upon chief officer, elected representatives, that is ward members, municipal corporators, to take care of his interest. If these persons do not defend him properly, the benefit of doubt needs to be given. Now, an artificial person is born artificially. So, as I said, he has not been given all rights. His rights and life is curtailed. It is controlled. So, natural person can deal with his property in mode and manner he likes, but artificial person cannot do it. So, when you are going to court of law, you have to point out that artificial person can dispose of or lease away the property in this particular manner, and it has been so disposed of, and therefore there is a legal right in my favor. If that is not done, benefit will definitely go to artificial person.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
One more question is there. Advocate Sachin Maratkar is asking, one of the director of private limited company has committed a fraud and siphoning of amount of company, whether company can file a civil suit to recover the said amount in civil court, or whether it will be better to file a case in NCLT.
Madam, if NCLT has got jurisdiction, because NCLT will be dealing with the aspect of the matters which are relating to mismanagement of company or taking disadvantage of his position by the director. If it is plain simple suit for recovery of money, civil suit will be better remedy.
Thank you, sir. One more question is how to prove document received under RTI?
Like any other document, fact that you have received document under RTI does not exempt you from any of the provisions of Evidence Act. So the fact that it is signed by the person whose signature appears on it, that person had knowledge of its contents, all are required to be proved before the court. And in such situation, what happens is if a document is registered one, it is always better to give certified copy of such document received from the office of sub-register of documents, so that it is not very difficult to prove contents of that document. Yes, next question.
Next question is, sir, Advocate Thorve is asking, in contempt proceedings, who can be sued in respect of municipal council if the earlier corporation officer is transferred?
Now, this happens frequently because contempt proceedings take some time, but then contempt is committed by an individual. So transfer of that chief officer is not relevant. Even if he is transferred, he remains responsible for contempt. But parties are interested in execution of order. So they should give fresh notice to new chief officer, new incumbent, and then file fresh contempt proceedings against the new chief officer.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, Advocate Narar Kulkarni is asking, if after filing a plaint, if plaintiff wants to cure some defects by amendment, then is it legally beneficial to plaintiff and cause loss or damages to his civil rights?
So, madam, if plaintiff wants to add defendant, that is the question.
If after filing a plaint,
Yes.
if plaintiff wants to cure some defects
Yes.
by amendment, then is it legally beneficial to plaintiff and cause loss or damages to his civil rights?
No, there is no question. If the law permits him to carry out the amendment, if his prayer is in four corners of Order 6, Rule 17, he can always ask for amendment.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
He can cure defect. Yes, next question.
Next question is, Vidya Lohia is asking, Vidit Lohia. Please explain the difference between the concept of leave and license given under Rent Control Act and concept of license given under Section 52 of Easement Act.
Section 52 of Easement Act.
Yes, sir.
Now, if Rent Control Act is applicable, Section 52 will not apply, madam.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Next question is from Prasad Kulkarni, sir. Notwithstanding execution of register relinquishment deed, can partition suit be filed?
It can be filed. You will have to challenge that document and explain what is wrong with that document.
Okay, sir. Thank you. If anybody have query again, please put your query in chat box. One more question is there. Advocate Sachin Maratkar is asking, in case of leave and license of residential flat outside corporation limit, then which court has jurisdiction to entertain the case of eviction of licensee, civil court or competent authority?
Madam, you will be required to read the notification by which the court under Maharashtra Rent Control Act has been constituted. If that notification permits court to take cognizance of properties which are outside municipal limits, that will be competent court. If the notification says that only in relation to municipal properties that court will have jurisdiction, then it will be ordinary civil court before which the litigation will be required to be filed.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have query? Thanks a lot, sir. So I think we don't have any query because sir has explained very well. Wait, one question is there. After which a number of additional WS order can be prayed for. What is this? Pallavi ma'am, please write your question briefly and properly. Sir, one more question is, in civil suit after amendment of plaint, how long does the court need to wait for additional written statement? Is there a reasonable time after which no additional WS order can be prayed for?
Madam, for written statement there is time limit. So also for additional written statement, the time limit is there and court can wait up until that time and thereafter proceed further.
Okay, sir, thank you. So many questions and so many answers we got. Now we will turn to our end of the session. I will request Advocate Surekha Dabi, please do vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sandhya madam. Thank you, sir. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation, sir, for sharing such a valuable knowledge today. Thank you.